You are joining us from this evening. It is another set of six here. I'm Adam Collins, and tonight we are visiting our friends from the Philippines. We have Martha Tan and Ray Gigataris joining us all the way from the Philippines. Martha and Ray, g'day. How are you?
Hey.
We're doing well. Mabuhay. Kamusta?
Yeah, great to have you on board. Thanks for joining us here this evening. Or, like I said, it could be any time around the world. People coming online and watching it at their will. We've had a great series of set of six so far. So thanks very much for the Philippines coming on board and letting us know what's going on in your neck of the woods. We'll kick it off with Martha. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been involved in the sport over there in the Philippines.
Oh, wow. I started when I was in high school. I was in my first year of high school, and we had it for PE for a little bit. And then he brought us to the University of the Philippines. And after that, the college organization let us keep playing with them. And ever since, I've been playing, and I'm in my almost last year of college now. So it's been a little while.
It's been a little while. Sort of sport it is, eh? You can start young and you can still be playing when you're up there in your 60s and 70s. So you've got a long time, a long career ahead of you, Martha.
I hope so.
Excellent. And Ray, you're the president over there of the Philippines. Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I was involved in touch. I was born and grew up in Papua New Guinea, so they play touch there, obviously. Went to Australia for high school and college, and so got exposed to University of Queensland touch. Got involved in refereeing, actually, not so much in the playing side of things. Went to state cups, national cup, and the NTLs. Used to referee at Whites Hill, the BMTA Cup, and then I moved. Exactly, and then I moved to the Philippines in 2005, and then got involved in helping, promote and grow the sport here.
Well, so you've been around a little while and had your foot in a few little camps there with the officiating, and there you are, bringing something back to the game over there in the Philippines. Awesome.
Correct.
So, yeah, we're all around the world. We are affected, obviously, by COVID-19. The pandemic has affected everyone. How's it affected the general Philippines community over there? And then I'll get you to touch on how it's affected the touch footballing fraternity as well.
So it's obviously a situation that is affecting everyone. Here in the Philippines, it's been pretty serious, and it's still ongoing. So we have been in a lockdown since March of this year. Mid-March, and we're still currently in a form of lockdown, and it's continuing to do so. So we've been working from home for since March. Even people returning to school during this period online last week. So we haven't had any organized sport since basically March 15th. We had our last game of touch at the end of February when we had the final of our Manila Touch League. And at the current situation with the lockdown that's in place by the government, sports are not allowed to be played. So it's only individual fitness and activities that are being allowed. And even pro teams are only allowed to train. So it's really just trying to keep healthy and safe at home.
Yeah, fair enough. And Martha, I'll get you to touch on there. What sort of effect has it had on the touch community not being able to get out and see each other and play the sport that we all love?
I think it's been a bit of a heavy blow on everybody. I mean, especially touch here in the Philippines, we're kind of a small community. Everyone knows each other. Everyone gets together. It's more than just a sport. And I think a lot of people were kind of shocked initially not to be able to see each other again, not to be able to play. And slowly, I think people have adapted. I mean, people here, usually after a good game, a good match, they go out drinking or something. So now we have something called inuman, like online drinking sessions with everybody and stuff like that. So we've adapted, but I think it was a bit of like a stunt to the momentum we all had. We were all excited to play. We were going to have all these tournaments lined up, and then COVID came. So now we're just encouraging everyone to stay safe, stay at home, and try to keep fit if they can, especially now.
Yeah. So you touched on there the whole online presence. What methods have Touch Philippines used to stay in touch with the community out there? How have you engaged them during the shutdown period?
So that's a good question. We've basically, it's mainly something that we've left at the clubs and really. In terms of the national organization, in terms of Touch Association Pilipinas, we've basically been working on organizational matters in the background, things that we didn't really have time to do. So we've been talking to Fit a lot. We've been talking to some of our near neighbors, and then talking internally about the things that we need to do to be able to effectively grow and manage the sport here.
Oh, very good. Martha, have you got anything you'd like to add there?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we try to stay active on socials as much as we can. We post announcements and any updates we have, and just try to keep everyone in their spirits up.
Very good. Yeah, it's very very important to keep everybody engaged. As you said, it's more than a sport for a lot of people, and it's that the mental health aspects of it as well. Is that something that you're mindful of, Ray?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I know the clubs themselves have been doing things with their members. As I said, very small community, everyone's friends. So there's a lot of obviously online activities, like there's so much online fitness activities, whether it be yoga or fitness training or strength training, and people just getting together. And because also, we're working from home. I know, for example, in my organization that we have mental health discussions every day, basically, because it's so important at this time.
Yeah, fair call. So you touched on you've left it out to a lot of the clubs out there to maintain the contact during the period. Where is Touch based in the Philippines? How many players do you have, and where do you see the growth market?
To understand that is to understand a little bit about the Philippines and the challenges we face in terms of our geography. So the Philippines is a nation of islands. We like to say that we're a nation with the most islands, 7,600 plus. But there are mainly 3 geographical areas. But in the sense of playing in the Philippines, it's mainly centered around Metro Manila and the island of Luzon. Saying that, it's a catchment area. There's about 40 million people. But right now we're predominantly in Metro Manila in terms of schools, clubs, teams that play rugby as well. I mean, how Touch came into the Philippines was really through the rugby clubs. Manila Nomads Rugby was one of those. People were playing it as part of training. There wasn't much organized rugby as well. So people were playing, some form of touch, but not in an organized competition. And then the international high schools got together, 3 of them, International School Manila, Brent International School, and Faith Academy, and started playing. But interestingly, they started playing. It was only female or women playing. So it was our first organized competitions were female teams, and we still have a predominantly female-based community because that's where it's come from. So the guys used to play rugby, obviously. Maybe they would join in, play a bit of mixed. And then from that initial 3 international schools, it formed out to the universities and then some clubs. And then now we have a men's league as well. So we have a unique situation where we actually have more female players in the Philippines compared to men's players. So we have about probably 300 to 500 active players who play. The last season, so it was unfortunate, the season that we completed was one of our biggest seasons in terms of number of clubs who are participating, men's and women's. So we're playing at high school level and then all the way to all age brackets. We haven't really been able to go outside of Metro Manila and Luzon because of the logistical challenges. It's something we want to do, definitely. And then trying to work with the rugby clubs, the rugby teams, and in helping grow the sport for both of our sports. So I mean, it's been going since we spread out from the international schools in 2005, and that's kind of when organized Touch started, and we started having the very beginnings of an organization.
Okay, so relatively young sport, but it sounds like you've got a great structure over there, and I can see Martha nodding with the high female participation. Quite happy about that, Martha, to be carrying the flag.
Of course.
Absolutely. And so I'll go with that, Martha. You just recently, you very excitingly helped out the Federation of International Touch when you're promoting the International Youth Day. Tell us a little bit about that.
At first when I heard about it, I was really happy because I was really interested. I've always been really interested in promoting youth, and there's so much power to them. There's so much they can do, especially now with how times are changing. and how technology is growing and growing. It's becoming part of almost everyone's life now. And I think the youth has such a big impact on how that can be better utilized, how people can receive information, the way they see things, how they perceive things as well, and the way they learn. And I think with just how much things are changing, it's a little harder for people of older generations to pick it up, but the youth can make it easier. They can make it something that benefits everybody and not just the youth. And I think that's something that people in decision-making positions need to take into account, because everything that they decide, everything that they choose to do moving forward ultimately affects the people who are here now and the people that are going to come in the next generations.
Yeah, so and it was quite a big thing there. We've got it on the screen now, actually. Latani from PNG was also involved, and it's great, as you said. It's important for the decision makers at every level to tap in and harness what we have, the resource that we have in our youth that have been around here in Australia. Kids are playing touch from the age of 5 years old, and it's a nursery that we should be tapping into at every level. 100% right there. And the technology is a major thing. We're only joking about it here today. If you need to know something about technology, go and ask an 8-year-old child. They're the ones with all the
I know. It's crazy, and exactly what you said, especially there, since that people get involved in touch so young. You can see that it changes every time there's a new batch of kids. It's never quite the same. So it's so important to keep listening to what new things they can come up with and what new things that they notice that other people didn't before, or weren't even things that you had to take notice of before.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice insight there, Martha. And again, on behalf of the Federation, thanks very much for everything that you're doing in that fields, and we can see you popping up there now. Martha Touch Association Pilipinas. And yeah, fantastic. Again, we thank you very much for everything you're doing in that aspect of our sport. And Ray, you'd be pretty proud of Martha and the contribution she's making all around the world.
Yes, definitely. So I knew Martha when she joined us at 13, 14, when she popped up at our field in the University of Philippines. And, having seen her grow, she was one of the few who stayed from her high school batch, joining a university club. And then to see her grow and develop in the sport, stay in it, one thing. And then also be able to represent the Philippines last year at the World Cup. Which was amazing. And then, of course, because of that, giving her no choice and roping her in to help us with the organization of the future, right? The future of the sport lies with Martha, not with me. I'm just here to kind of prop it up until Martha and people of Martha's generation can take it over.
No pressure there, Martha.
Easy.
Yeah, very good. And just a reminder to everybody out there that is watching, I can see we have a little bit of an audience there. Don't forget you can ask your questions or make comments in the comments box on both YouTube and our Facebook page. So if you've got a question for the guys, feel free to ask at any time. It'll pop up, and our producer in the background will get it on the screen so everybody can contribute to our set of 6 here tonight. We have had we've had somebody touch base with us, Dean Russell, the CEO of New South Wales Touch Football. Just reminding everybody that the New South Wales Touch Conference and Awards this Saturday, and all of our international guests are invited to join it. If you go to the New South Wales Touch Football Facebook page or website, you'll be able to find the details there or in the comments stream. And he's just making mention that he's joining all of these international trips around the world. So viewers in all locations and at every level of sport. So, Dean, great to have you on board, mate. Shout out to you. And Simon has also come up. Simon's been one of our great viewers right throughout the whole process of the set of 6. One of the biggest drivers for any sport is a spot in a major games. Asian Games in 2022 would be a great showcase for touch, and then how closer to your swing touch in a major games. We'll have a chat about that a little bit later on, but I will touch on the pinnacle of the sport, the 2019 World Cup. A very interesting experience over there in Malaysia. Give us a little bit of insight into how your teams and officials prepared and what you took away from the experience. Martha, I might throw to you there.
I figured. It was really interesting. For me, it was the first time to participate in the World Cup. It would be the second time the Philippines sent over a women's team. And It was also the first time that the Philippines sent over a men's opens team. So a lot of things were was a lot of learning experiences for us. There's a lot of things we hadn't initially thought about. There's so much involved in the preparation, and especially since we're a country and with a lot of citizens and nationals all over the world, we have players who wanted to come and represent the Philippines from England, from Canada, from Australia even. So there was a lot of learning curves for us on how to mesh that with the locals who wanted to learn and to get better and to experience such a high level of play. I mean, it's like you said, it's the pinnacle of touch. It's the Touch World Cup. It's against the best of the best all over the world. So for us, it was, I can't say it enough. It was such a learning experience, being that it's such a young sport here in the Philippines. There's so much that we were able to pick up from even just playing different teams from different countries, seeing their styles, seeing their plays, the discipline that they have in the sport, and the dedication that everyone has put into it, from the coaches to the managers to the players themselves who work hard remotely and locally wherever they're training. So I think moving forward, we know better to prepare way ahead now, like way ahead in advance. You can never prepare too much, especially for an event like the World Cup. You never know what comes up, even just.
I think a lot of people took that message away. A lot of people took that message away from Malaysia, especially with the conditions over there. People thought they were prepared.
Oh
and
my
it was
God. Just amazing. That heat index, my goodness. We were all like, we know heat, but damn.
Yeah. So on a personal level, what did it mean to you to represent the Philippines, and what did you bring away or take away from the tournament? What was your everlasting memory of that experience?
Oh, wow. Well, on a personal, it meant a lot to me to represent the Philippines. Like Ray said, I started in early high school. I was 14, 15 when I started playing, but I was always a bit hesitant at first. I could see that people knew better than me in a lot of things and were more experienced and played for a lot longer. So it took me a while to pick it up as well. And eventually, people encouraged me, my friends around me encouraged me to actually try out and to pursue being part of the training pool. And I thought, oh no, I have school, I have university, I don't know how I'm going to do this. There's traffic in the Philippines everywhere. How am I going to get to everything, But somehow I managed to do that. And I felt like it was such an honor to be able to represent the Philippines, my country, no matter how small our community is, playing touch. It meant a lot to me to be able to carry my flag and to the world stage. I mean, we know we're growing, and that's the point. We don't think we're going to win the World Cup, but we want to go there to grow. We want to show where we're at and then see, okay, this is where we're at now. This is where we're going to be next time. This is where we want to be. This is how much harder we want to work. So I think that's one of the biggest things I took away from it, is that we have this potential, we have this capacity, and we can see that there's so much more we can cultivate and where we can improve on. And I think that's the thing I keep bringing back and keep mentioning to people who ask me about my experience, that we got a ways to go, but we're getting there. Like, we're taking those steps. And I think if we pursue the path that we've been on the past few months, despite the pandemic, I think we're going to have a pretty good chance of big improvement in the future, for sure.
Yeah, but as you said, relatively young sport for the Philippines and a small playing base. But there's a great song here in Australia, and also something that we sort of, I don't know, so much take for granted, but it's an ethos that we have, that from little things, big things grow. And you've got to take those small steps, and that outlook that you have there. You're not going there to win the World Cup, but you're going there to give it your best shot, to compete and to learn. And hopefully in the future, we'll see big things from the little country of the Philippines. So Ray, as the leader of the organisation, tell us a little bit about what you thought of the World Cup and what the players have brought back to the sport in the Philippines since the World Cup.
Yeah, so definitely it was a huge learning experience for everyone involved, both in terms of the players, the managers, the officials taking part, and also the organization per se. I mean, one of the things we were happy, really, in terms of results, the men's team finished top 3 in their pool, came so inches close to making the quarterfinal. It came down to point differentials of fractions between England and Papua New Guinea, and then they were able to finish 6th overall. And then the women's team, although their 15th place did not reflect how well they played, and their very, very close matches they had. If they had started maybe a bit better on the first day, things would have been better. And a lot of our players know, actually, because it was hot in Malaysia, definitely, but probably we did better in it than compared to other countries. That maybe if it gone longer, probably our team would have done better, actually, because we know some of the other countries are not used to that kind of temperature. So results-wise, definitely it's been great for our second World Cup. As I said, two women's teams, 2015, 2019. We had a mixed team in 2015, and this time a men's team. But also in terms of the organization, it allowed us to see where there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow and develop. Definitely with a huge amount of challenges organizationally that we learned from, that we need to do better in. And especially moving forward, that definitely, as Martha was alluding to, preparation time is so important. That a World Cup being 4 years away, essentially you're preparing 4 years, 8 years, 12 years in advance. So you have to put together that kind of plan about how you're going to do that. And what we learned is that, we're a small, young sport, and it also means, like a small, young sport, it's being run by a very few number of volunteers. And in a lot of cases, it's just 1 or 2 people. And that's so much to be placed on just 1 or 2 people to put together or to run an organization, right? And it cannot be sustained. You just burn out your volunteers. So, and because of that, there are obviously going to be organizational challenges, some communication problems, some missteps that we want to learn from. So this time around, we have a new board. We have more people in the board who are more actively engaged. And one of the things we're trying to do during this pandemic, since no one can play anyway, and I think someone posted, how can they help out here in the Philippines? So we're trying to work through better tapping our community and our legion of people who can help and volunteer. Martha, myself, the rest of the board, we only have a small amount of institutional knowledge from our different backgrounds. If we can pool everyone else that's out there from all their different experiences, backgrounds professionally, to help out in just a little bit, then it's going to be able to help the organization as a whole. So we're going through the growing pains of a very small, almost club-based organization run by 1 or 2 people to trying to run a national organization. So, one of the things we're trying to do is to tap more people into working groups to help with things like business development, with marketing, with our training, our coaching, with our referees, with our training and development, because it can't just be done by the board. Because the truth is, we're all volunteers, and we're trying to balance our working lives, our personal lives, and then also touch, which we love passionately. If I could be paid for it, I would love to be doing it full time. But the reality is that it is a passion project, and it's a lot to ask from just 1 or 2 people. So we need more of the community to step up, which is what's been happening, which is really great. So now we have a separate group that helps with business development. We have a separate group that's starting to help with marketing, and we want to do the same thing for all the different arms.
Yeah.
So that this is how we also engage people, right? Touch is not my sport. Touch is not Martha's sport. Touch is everyone's sport. And how we grow is through everyone helping out. It's one of the things, having lived in Australia, and I've seen how that volunteerism permeates everything, right?
Yeah.
That it's the only way it's going to work out. Maybe eventually it'll become a professional sport, but we have to get to that stage yet. So there were definitely a lot of challenges in terms of just pure organization, right? Not having the manpower and probably the knowledge of how to do it. And then, of course, as Martha was alluding to, we have a lot of heritage-based players and people who have migrated overseas from living here in the Philippines who want to play. And we need to better tap their knowledge and their ability. For example, we have a really great number of Australian players playing at very, very high levels. How can we, tap their enthusiasm to want to play for the Philippines, but have that spread back here and develop the game here? And it's a delicate balancing act between heritage players who want to play and making sure we also develop our local athletes. So
yeah, absolutely. That
huge challenge.
The real nursery growth that you have there in the Philippines is important. It's one thing to fly in teams for these pinnacle tournaments, but it doesn't do anything for the sport back at home. So it is a balancing game that you guys need to find the right measure of. But just talking about the development of the sport, there's a lot of people around the world. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people out there that have forged ahead and that have done what you're doing now. So I know that the general touch football community is very tight-knit, and we love to share our wealth of experience and knowledge. So, through the federation or the larger nations, don't be shy in reaching out if you need some support or some programs to
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the things we've been doing. We over the last few months, Martha knows this because I drag her into everything. We've been talking a lot with FIT, with Peter, with Bill, with everyone in the organization, and also reaching out to our near neighbors, because we totally believe that people have done it before. Let's learn from that experience. Let's integrate it, copy, steal, borrow, beg, and then adapt it for.
Absolutely.
But we're here in the Philippines. We're not going to try to reinvent it. And as Dean said, other countries have joined New South Wales, the State Cup. We have an initial plan, which is one of the things that was announced about having some of our heritage players join the Queensland State Cup, because a lot of our players at the moment are based in Queensland.
Right.
I know that there are probably more that we're not tapping, and we need to better integrate that, our Australian players. But yes, definitely. Playing in Australia is one way to do that, and we had players who, before the World Cup, flew in to do that. We had three of our men's players, but also there's that cost challenge, right, of flying people in to join those tournaments, and volunteer sporting organizations are essentially run on fumes and a lot of love, but that doesn't pay for plane tickets, kit,
true.
Only it's good. Only it could.
Yeah, Touch doesn't pay for much at all, really. Like, as you said, it's a passion project for almost everybody that's participating at, even at the pinnacle at that. You look at the Australian teams and so forth, and it's still that passion project for everybody at every level. But Dean's just commented there, Ray and Martha can come on a study tour of New South Wales Touch Association. So there's an offer for you.
Thank you.
I think I'm past my prime. Martha, sure, definitely. I would definitely all for.
You never passed your prime, Ray. Don't you worry about that.
He's not. He can't be past his prime yet. He's not going anywhere. I'm not letting him.
I like it. And Martha's in charge, mate. So you just pull your head in there, Ray. But you touched on some exciting things have been happening there in the Philippines. You've been very active, and I saw a lot of your social media around appointments at the elite level. What's happening there? There were some major changes post-World Cup?
Not so much changes as kind of things that we need to happen. So we know that we need to level up our elite coaching program. We need to level up in terms of the experience. We really don't have the coaching infrastructure here yet for that. We don't play that level, so we need to tap someone to do that. It's not really a new thing because it was someone who was already involved in our last World Cup. So John Beasley was involved with our men's team, and he did fantastic with the team. And he actually, almost right after the World Cup, he already expressed interest in helping out again, as well as some of the other people who were involved in that coaching group with the men's team. And with John's experience in Queensland and having been involved at NTLs for his club teams and coaching also at that level, he's very familiar with our setup, familiar with our players, and most importantly, familiar with the challenges that come with it. So we need continuity for one thing, right? It's no good just chopping and changing. So continuity, as well as also what can we do to move forward and then also help what's happening here. So the decision was to appoint John as not only our mixed head coach of our mixed team for the next World Cup, but also what we would designate as a national head coach. And then our men's and women's coaches would ideally be someone we're going to tap here in the Philippines. And then they would basically tutor and be mentored by John. And it's as I said, the challenge of you have players who are based in the Philippines, you have players based overseas. So how can that work, right? So we need still a coaching infrastructure here, and John working with those local coaches, helping our local players level up, and then John looking after our Australian-based players and then overall program, and then that coming together. And then we also announced that in terms of how we would select our team, at least at the very basic level, we haven't put any selection criteria out there yet, but that we would focus our energy for our 2023 World Cup in the mixed team first. So it's something that I think the New Zealand team approaches. So we select our mixed teams first, and then we select our men's and women's teams from our pool of national athletes. So that is one of the things that's what we announced, that it's just the very basics of the elite national program. And we haven't really thought that, prior to that, we were only thinking in 1 year periods, right? So now we're thinking far ahead. We still are working on the men's and women's coaches. We've talked to someone based in Australia also was a great coaching and institutional kind of learning background in helping us as a technical director. So we're in talks with that to help out in terms of also our technical infrastructure, right? One of the things is, like any small organization, we don't have any processes in place, right? There's no roadmap in terms of for players, for referees, for coaches. We only have a few little things and maybe knowledge that people have brought, like myself. So we need someone to help us with putting together the processes, the policies, and procedures at that level in the elite national program, working with John, working with the national coaches who are going to be selected for men's and women's to come up with a program that will be able to mesh our heritage players overseas and our local players here, while also ensuring our local players are going to be able to be leveled up. So hopefully at 2023 World Cup, and this is one of the things we identified from 2019, we have more local players playing at that elite level, and better integration and knowledge sharing from our heritage players to our local players.
Early decisions like that you're making there provide the stability to allow things to develop. And it's important too that the players can see that at the top there, you're putting these programs in place so that they can feel supported when they do come into the programs. And we touched on there about, well, we touched on earlier about countries that have been going to the State Cup in New South Wales or that have had similar coaching programs put in place. And they're the countries now that are reaping the benefits at World Cup level. When you look at teams like Japan, South Africa, England, they've all promoted that very thing where they bring in coaches, but it's with a view to grow the game at home, to develop their own coaches, to develop their own nurseries, to be able to say bye-bye to the Australian or New Zealand coaches and then their own step into the game. So you guys are on the right track. It's great to see. And just to hear the passion that you talk about it with, it's amazing. So Touch is in great hands here at the moment. Ray, you're not allowed to go anywhere, mate. Martha's got you under the thumb.
I told you.
I've run out of hair already, so I don't know.
Oh, that's been gone for a long time. It's not going to come back anytime soon.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll talk about we will talk about that from the playing perspective. The Asian Cup. In the future, there's also the European Championships, the State Cup that Dean talked about, other tournaments around the world. And I know cost is a factor, and of course COVID is also something. But how do you see the future from a player's perspective in coming to events like that? Is it something that you could do individually, or would it be best served coming as a team, do you think?
Well, from experience, I've been with a couple clubs who've traveled, say, to Hong Kong for the ANZ championships. So I think it was easier to come in with a team already initially. I mean, you can train together beforehand. You can try things out that you can really try out here at home or something like that. So I think that was a good experience. Individually, I think if you, as an individual here in the Philippines, if you have the opportunity to join in a team abroad to play a couple tournaments, something that I say go for it. You will never get better unless you try things that are going to challenge you, things that are going to be hard for you at first, because otherwise you'll just be in one level. You won't get better. And there's so much to learn all over the place. I swear, there's such different styles of play, and you'll be amazed what you see. Like, you're watching, but you're playing at the same time. You're like, oh, that's a good thing. I'm gonna remember that. Like, oh, when you get scored at, I see what you did. Okay.
I think I'd like to sit down and watch a game with you, Martha, and just listen to how you pick the game apart. You sound like a little bit inquisitive there, and yeah, it would be interesting, I think, to watch a game with you.
I talk a little too much, I think.
Dean talked about coming on a study tour, and I know personally I've had players from South Africa and Japan come and live with me and my family many years ago that are still at the top of the tree, and what they took back to their countries individually has grown from there. The Japanese, there's a couple of Japanese guys that I think you probably know, Hide, and the guys that have just gone out there, they've spread their wings and played touch in New Zealand, played touch in Australia, and they go back, and it's that wealth of knowledge that they take back with them, and the teams grow around them. I think you'd be the perfect candidate, Martha.
Sorry?
I think you'd be the perfect candidate for that.
I hope so. If I ever get the chance to, with all this going on, I'd definitely love to be able to do that. And I know so many players here in the Philippines who are young and still a bit shy, but you can see that they have so much in them. They want it so much, and I get so excited to see them play and to try new things. And I wish I had more to teach them. I wish there was more that I could give to them to help them keep growing, because I'm sure very soon they're all going to surpass me, and I'm just going to be like, yes, this new generation of players are going to take us to the next years, and how many more World Cups come, So
when and I'll bring Ray back in here, when the COVID situation is lifted and international travel is available, is it something you'd be looking at possibly promoting a scholarship where you might pay for, whether it's players or coaches, to go to some of these countries and just learn, maybe sponsor and work with the New South Wales Association or Queensland and maybe set up a relationship where things like that can happen? Is that something you'd think about? I think we've just lost you there.
Let me try that. Sorry.
Yeah, got you, mate.
You forget when your mic's on mute. It's too much from work from home.
Exactly.
Definitely, we would want to do that. I mean, Fit, Peter, Bill shared their experience with how Japan was able to do it with Steve Roberts many years ago. So we would definitely be happy to do something like that if we can make that happen in some form or fashion. Finances is obviously one of the biggest challenges, but we definitely see that kind of intellectual knowledge transfer is so important. I mean, even Hide Nore, he's even been here to the Philippines. He was here for like 3-4 weeks about a couple of years ago, right? And it was great to have him around. And then also our Australian, US, English-based players, Canadian-based players coming back and giving back to the community. Definitely. It's going to be key, as well as finding opportunities for our local players to be able to play in the near region, right? So the Asian Cup is really crucial. I think why England and the rest of the European nations were able to level up is because their almost annual competition at the European level just lifted their level, right? So one of the things we want to do is be able to firstly, there's the Asian Cup. This is why we really were we asked Fit to have it was supposed to be this year, every 2 years, but because of COVID we asked that, hey, let's have it next year and the year before that, a year after that as well, so that prior to the World Cup we have 2 of these.
You have 2,
so that we can really develop, and then trying to have those country competitions, right? Coordinating with like Hong Kong, with Singapore, with Thailand, with Malaysia. So Amir posted that we had a very close game with Malaysia in the World Cup in the Women's Open team, and then so teams playing at also comparable levels and higher levels, right? So that we can learn from that experience, and as we grow within the region grows with us, and then it all gets better, right? So definitely, it's definitely the knowledge transfer. Whether someone goes there, we bring someone in, like John coming here. That's part of the plan. John and some other people coming here to the Philippines to pass on their knowledge, to run training camps for our national athletes. I know we've been in talks it was cut short with Touch Singapore, who just posted.
Yeah, I like that.
Of trying to have, we were looking at something like that, some sort of tournament. I mean, before the World Cup, we had a mixed tournament in Hong Kong as part of their Hong Kong annual competition between Hong Kong, China, and the Philippines. So we can only get better the more we play, right? So it's trying to find that opportunity to make that happen.
That's been the real key in all of these sets of 6. Every one of the countries we've talked to has touched on that, the need to play consistent high-level touch. And, somebody there, Amir, had made a comment about the game at the World Cup between Malaysia and the Philippines, just how tight and nail-biting it was, a great experience for both teams. And to grow on that, you need the tournaments like the Asian Cup, that exposure, that experience. And Touch Singapore, we're ready when you are, calling you out. I like it. So,
we'll see you there.
The proof is in the pudding, because Australia and New Zealand take each other on in the Trans-Tasman sort of biannually as well. And the growth that's received in those tournaments between World Cup experiences, you can't speak highly enough of it. And that's something that it's great to hear you talk about, those challenges and trying to get them in place. And asking FIT to make sure the Asian Cup, we might miss this year because of COVID, but if we can play 2 in that space, it's so important for your growth.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So,
sorry, right? Oh, and like I said, building that rivalry, right? Australia and New Zealand, in every sporting level, right? Because of that competition, they've gotten better for it, right? So I mean, we can't play Australia and New Zealand because this week we're just too far apart, right? But finding a near neighbor who's close enough to create that competition, right? Drive it. Frenemy. Exactly.
And it's a whole different kind of pressure, to go up against a bunch of players you've never met. You don't know how they play. You don't know how they move. They're not your friends.
No.
Not that they're not nice or anything, but you just really don't know who these people are. It's a whole other thing. It's a whole other mind game. It's such good practice for yourself, mentally and physically, in the game.
So, Ray, I want to know, what are you missing about the game? We're not playing it at the moment. What are you missing about touch?
Well, apart from the obvious, which is the fitness aspect of it, obviously, it's just the people, right? The people in touch. It really is the people is what make it the sport, right? I played rugby. I played other sports as well. The nice thing about touch is because you're playing together in mixed even, right? You build that camaraderie between each other. And as Martha said, you spend a lot of time outside of touch. training. So I've seen a lot of people post recently and over the last couple of months in Facebook, on IG stories, how they missed the games, and when we see videos come up and old pictures. So it's really that. It's just connecting with all those people, and having been doing it for so long. And a lot of those people are also still there. They're really your friends, right? And I know you feel the same way, and just as well as all the other people in the touch community, that it's so small. They're your friends, so you miss them because you want to be able to catch up with them and just reconnect.
Yeah, fair call. And Martha, tell me about COVID. COVID's lifted. The pandemic's gone. You're back out on the field. How are you going to score your first try? Touchdown.
Oh, geez.
Talk me through it.
Talk me through it. Oh, no. Oh, my Lord. Well, one of the plays I actually really like, I don't know what it's called abroad, but we call it a B. It's really simple. Right. It's just pass to the right, have someone swing around, and just dive right in. I'm actually not the greatest diver out there. I'll get scars. I'll mess my legs up and everything. But when you're in game and you just feel so intense, especially in the rain, even when it's all muddy and the ground is all shit.
Oh, perfect.
It's perfect diving, bad or not. Just go for it. It feels so much more intense. And I guess I miss that in the sport so much. Just that intensity that you feel from anybody. Everyone's so itching to run, itching to get to the ball and get to the score line, push everyone off, even though you're not supposed to be pushing when you make a touch. Things like that. Definitely.
Minimal. It was just a little push, sir.
It's a little push. Everyone's a little strong, so you got to be,
Yeah, very good. And Ray's 100% right. It's about the friendships, the camaraderie that you build up, and that you touched on a very important aspect and a promotional aspect of the sport there, that you can play it at the highest level as a mixed player. And you can play at the lowest level as a mixed player as well. Your mums and dads and kids are all in the same team, and just to get that combination and every 4 years you go to a World Cup. I'm still seeing people that I met, 6 World Cups ago, and it's like old school week where you just, the cuddles and the high fives and that's what this sport's all about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Please just touching on something that Ray spoke about. It's important to challenge yourselves by playing and learning against those teams that you aspire to emulate, but also take those lessons and implement them against teams of equal standing. And that's how you grow. That's how teams like South Africa and Japan and England have made those small steps. They know when they go to a World Cup, we're going to look at what Australia and New Zealand are doing. Mm-hmm. One day that's the ultimate defeat, but it's taking on those other nations. So that rivalry now that exists between South Africa, Japan, and England, playing for the bronze medal, that's only going to lift them higher, and they'll all grow together.
Yeah.
You guys can tap into that. So Dean's 100% right. It's important to have those challenges, but that first step is very, very important. It sounds like you guys are on the right track. So thanks, Dean, for touching base with us here tonight throughout the chat, and for all of the other people that have contributed as well. We might wrap it up there and say thanks to Martha and Ray. It's been great to get an insight into what's happening there in the Philippines. Exciting times. I can't wait till we have an opportunity to catch up around the field somewhere. I'm sure an Asian Championships or World Cup, wherever it is. I've been asking everybody, no announcements yet. I don't think the bids have gone out, but where do you want to play the next World Cup for the seniors?
Somewhere close. When I think of the bottom line, that's what I think about. I'm gonna have to make that.
Yeah, very cool. If money was no object, okay, I'll throw it to you again. If money was no object, where would you like to visit around the world?
Twickenham. Let's play in Twickenham.
Let's play in Twickenham. There you go. So a shout out there to England.
Oh, England.
Yeah. And what about you, Martha? It doesn't look like you're very happy about the England call. Where would you like to go?
Yeah, I don't do good in cold. I don't know.
Somewhere like Barbados for you then.
Sorry?
Somewhere like Barbados or Cancun in Mexico.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, why not? Jump right into ocean right after.
All right. No, it's been great to catch up, guys, and thanks again for the chat. Dean signing off there with good luck with all that Touch Philippines is doing, and happy for you to reach out if needed. So there you go. Tap into resources. And these chats are great for that. Now that, people from all around the world are hearing what you've got to say and liking what you're putting down. So there might be a few people contacting you as well through our socials. And Dean's also just thrown one last one in there, Martha, Mauritius. So Mauritius is like a good venue for a World Cup.
We have better beaches. We have better beaches in Mauritius. So a plug for us. Hopefully when COVID is lifted, we have really great beaches to play beach touch here. It's one of the things we do kind of April and May. So maybe when this is all lifted, we will see you guys on the beaches here in the Philippines.
Come over.
Come and check it out. Thanks very much, Ray. Thanks, Martha. And thanks for everybody joining us for another set of 6 as we've enjoyed visiting the Philippines. We look forward to bringing you another chat next week. And wherever that may be, we'll pop up. Check out the socials for the invitation to join us when we visit somewhere else around the world for another set of 6. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.